This week, Canada has outlined its new Indo-Pacific strategy. And of course, all these themes sort of tie into each other, right? But basically, to counter Chinese influence, what is the single biggest goal? And of course, you've spoken a lot, but what is the single biggest goal of this strategy, and how long will it take to materialize?
First of all, it's a recognition that Canada has always been a Pacific country. We have deep and long-standing ties across the Pacific to a range of Asian countries and economies. But with the global center of economic gravity shifting more clearly towards Asia over the past years, we know we have to be even more present and engaged. And that's where investing in deeper trade ties, investing in more infrastructure and partnerships, investing in stronger diplomatic presence, and showing that we are that steady partner that Asia needs and is interested in. And it goes on many levels. First of all, yes, our resources, alternatives for critical minerals, energy resources that people have always looked to Canada for. But increasing, when I was there, I really heard a lot of interest in, wow, Canada's a leader in AI. Canada's got extraordinary high-tech manufacturing. Canada's the G7 country with the fastest growing population, the most open to immigration, the most diverse population. These are the things that are very, very interesting to companies looking to get a foothold in North America, looking to create those ties with a country that remains the only G7 country with a free trade deal with every other G7 country. So as we look to global trade, Canada is well positioned at the center of everything.
We've seen extraordinary protests on the streets of China in recent days. They seem mainly targeted at COVID and the lockdown restrictions. But of course, some are being directly focused and targeted at President Xi and the Communist Party. What is your take on what is happening in China and on the Chinese government's response?
Canada, as you know, has a very, very large Chinese-Canadian community, and we have had long ties across the Pacific to China and other countries, and it means we're watching very, very closely. Obviously, it's really important that citizens be able to make themselves heard, that they're protesting, yes, on a specific issue that touches on so many others of government control, of authoritarian states. We, of course, stand with those protesters. We know how important it is for people to express themselves, for journalists to be able to do their jobs. And we're going to continue to consistently stand up for human rights and the things that people in China and people all around the world are continuing to fight for.
There was disagreement between you and President Xi at the G20 in Bali. And President Xi's rebuke was quite remarkable. Have you patched things up?
Canada is always going to stand up very clearly for our values. These are the types of conversations that one has at these summits all the time, where we make very, very clear what Canada's positions are. We look to do it in a constructive way, but we won't back down from being a country that stands up for the rule of law, that stands up for the rights of citizens, and that will always be there to promote Canadian interests and values on the world stage. And not everyone likes that, but not every conversation gets to be an easy one. When we're direct about where we stand, I think it's important to be able to be clear on that.
Do you think China is the biggest threat to global stability?
I think there are many challenges we're facing as a world, and they all interweave in multiple ways. And that's where the Canadian government and Canadians need to remain consistent in our values, in our approach, work closely and align with people who share our values, look to challenge others like China where we need to, look to cooperate when it's in our interest to do so, but be very, very open-eyed about the various challenges we're facing around the world.
I'm just going to press you on this issue a little bit more, which is, where do you think that the West's relationship is vis-a-vis China right now?
I think there are various degrees of engagement across the West. There's not one single approach. But there is a consistency in understanding that China is an increasingly important global economic power, but it's also an increasingly challenging or disruptive global economic power. And we have to be thoughtful about how we engage in commercial and economic ties that benefit our citizens and can create growth that benefits everyone, while at the same time being consistent that we're going to stand up for our values, for our principles, for the things that our citizens in the West expect us to stand for, not just for our own purposes, but to highlight to people in China who disagree with the regime that there are other ways of doing things and there is a better future possibly ahead.